A disgraced pastor thought he could silence his grape accuser by suing her for $500,000. 3 years later, not only did he lose the case, the court just ordered him to pay her legal fees. And wait until you hear what the 100-page ruling actually says about him. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. This all happened as he was literally preparing to launch a brand new church. I'm talking Instagram posts, donation links, the whole thing. So the question everyone's asking is, what happens now? We're talking about Micahn, a former megachurch pastor who went from leading thousands to filing lawsuits. And now, well, let me just say the court didn't hold back. Let me set the scene for you. December 2025, Instagram post. Micahn, a 46-year-old pastor with a wife and 3 kids, announces he's planting a new church in Indianapolis. The church is called The Place. Very generic, very safe. The Instagram account is up, there's a donation link ready to go, and Carter's posting videos of himself leading worship with original songs. And here's the caption that really got people talking. It's time to build something beautiful with these broken pieces. Broken pieces. Remember that phrase, because it's about to become incredibly ironic. Now, if you're thinking this sounds like a normal church plant announcement, you'd be right. Except for one tiny detail. This is a comeback attempt. And not just any comeback, this is a comeback from some of the most serious allegations a pastor can face. See, 3 years earlier, in 2022, Carter resigned from Church of the Highlands in Birmingham, Alabama. And before that, he was the pastor at Together Church in Yakima, Washington, a thriving megachurch that has since completely folded. Doesn't exist anymore. Why did he resign? Because his former secretary, Mary Jones, accused him of rape. But Carter, he denied it, said it was consensual, called it an incident. Even claimed he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder the next morning and went to treatment. Then he entered a ministerial restoration program and eventually started preaching again. So by December 2025, he's ready for his fresh start. New city, new church, new beginning. But there's one problem. The court just dropped a 100-page bomb on his plans. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because this is where it gets really messy. In 2021, Mary Jones published a blog post. She didn't name Carter directly, but she described a non-consensual and horribly traumatic event from 2019 when she worked as his secretary at Together Church. She detailed a pattern of sensual harassment, inappropriate comments, unwanted touching, that escalated to rape during a leadership meeting. Now, here's the part that makes this even more complicated. Jones didn't report it to the police at the time. Why? In her own words, when it came to reporting, that went through the executive pastor, which happened to be his wife. I felt hopeless and like I had nowhere to turn. Think about that. The person she would report SA to was the pastor's wife. Jones told her mother and a therapist, and then tried to leave quietly. She said she truly wanted his family to be okay and didn't want to throw the pastor's life away publicly. But when Carter entered that restoration program and started preaching again, Jones felt she had to speak up. She sent a private letter to Chris Hodges, the pastor overseeing Carter's restoration. When she got no response, she published her blog. 10 days later, Carter was cut loose from Church of the Highlands. And then, Carter sued her, in Alabama, for $500,000, claiming defamation. His lawyer said, and I quote, "Accusing somebody of rape is devastating. It's hard to calculate all that is involved in that type of accusation." The case was dismissed on jurisdictional grounds. So Carter refiled in Washington state, where the alleged assault happened. He claimed Jones's blog post and letter caused him mental anguish, embarrassment, and loss of income. Lost publishing contracts, speaking engagements, ministry opportunities. Basically, he was saying, "You ruined my career by calling this rape when it was actually consensual." And this is where the story sat for years. Court battles, testimony from former pastors, debates over evidence, back and forth, until December 30th, 2025. That's when the Washington Court of Appeals released their decision. And it is scathing. First, let me tell you what they did. They threw out Carter's case completely, rejected every single claim, and then ordered him to pay Mary Jones's legal fees. But it's not just what they decided, it's how they said it. The 100-page ruling literally starts with the dictionary definition of rape. That's not an accident. That's the court making a statement. The judges wrote, Some pastors take advantage of a trusted position to manipulate young women into sensual encounters. They continued, the law protects such a young woman when she rightly informs and educates the public of SA in a pastoral or church setting. Let that sink in. The court said Jones was right to inform the public. Now, let me break down why they ruled in Jones' favor, because this is actually really important legally. First, they said her blog post was informative speech protected by law. The court wrote that any church would want to know whether a married pastor engaged in sensual intercourse with his assistant on church property. So this information could legally be made public for the sake of common interest. Second, they ruled that as a pastor, Carter qualifies as a limited public figure. That means people are allowed to make comments about him, even if they're negative. What they can't do is be malicious or publish things with reckless disregard for the truth. The court found zero evidence that Jones did this. Third, and this is huge, the court said Jones calling it grape was her opinion, and there was no evidence she suffered any doubt as to the truth of her words. But here's the part that really got me. Carter's lawyer argued that because Jones's story changed over time, she must be lying. You know, because she didn't immediately call it grape in 2019, but did call it grape in 2021. The court shut that down hard. They wrote, the change in Mary Jones's story, from the days after the sensual encounter to when she broadcast the communications, reflects a common occurrence among women subjected to SA from an employer. Victims sometimes first blame themselves. Later, after therapy, such victims understand the difference in power between the employer and them. In other words, the court recognized that trauma doesn't work on a timeline, that survivors often process what happened to them differently over time, that power dynamics matter. The ruling essentially said, when you review all the evidence, the law considers her statement to be true. So where does this leave us? As of right now, Micahn Carter has deleted his Instagram account. His church plant, The Place, is supposed to launch in Indianapolis this fall, but he hasn't made a single statement about the ruling or what happens next. He has until January 19th to file a motion for reconsideration. He has until January 29th to petition the Washington Supreme Court. But legal experts say this ruling is so thorough, so detailed, so unanimous. It's hard to see how it gets overturned. Meanwhile, Mary Jones's attorney called this a groundbreaking decision that will protect survivors everywhere. He said the opinion advances the law of defamation to ensure that survivors can speak freely about their experiences. And honestly, that's the bigger story here. So what happens to The Place? I don't know. Maybe Carter tries to launch it anyway. Maybe he quietly cancels it. Maybe he appeals the ruling and drags this out even longer. But here's what I do know. That Instagram caption about building something beautiful with these broken pieces? Those broken pieces aren't just his. They're the lives impacted by his actions. They're the church that folded. They're the trust that was shattered. And no amount of worship videos or inspirational captions can rebuild that without genuine accountability. This story matters because it's a reminder that accountability isn't optional, that speaking truth isn't defamation, and that survivors deserve to be heard and believed. If this story impacted you, do me a favor. Hit that like button and share this video. Stories like this need to be talked about, and the algorithm only pushes content that gets engagement. Drop a comment below. Do you think Carter will actually launch this church? Should there be more legal protections for survivors who speak out? I want to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications because we're not done covering these stories. The church needs accountability, and we're going to keep shining a light on it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.